this lesson, I'll be talking about the lower in a little bit more depth. The lower are really important in hoodoo, and from my perspective, I think they're more important than the saints. They're more traditional, at least. You have to remember that the saints were brought into the practice of hoodoo when the slaves were brought into America and they had to hide their spiritual practices. Catholicism wasn't in Africa. The Christian brought that down from Europe and forced many people into Christianity in order to receive aid. And the people of Africa were successfully doing their magic before Catholicism and Christianity was introduced into this work. That's not to say that if you're saying a prayer to one of the saints that you won't have success. Of course you can. But what I'm saying right now is that traditionally it is the lower that you should be looking to connect with if you're wanting to go that route. However, if you're already a practicing Catholic and it feels natural for you to introduce the saints into your work, then do so. I will also introduce some of the saints in this course, some of the saints that can help you with your love magic work. But I just wanted to share with you that it's really important about the African saints and the important role they play in understanding hoodoo. Voodoo is all about connection with the lower. Just as Christians constantly praise Jesus in their day-to-day life, someone that's practicing voodoo or hoodoo will often constantly praise one of the lower in their day-to-day life, using one of the many lower that there is. And there's actually more than just the 7 African powers when it comes to the lower. There's thousands and thousands of lower, because Africa, like you should know, is a continent, and Africa has many countries within that continent, and each country, or every region if you want, has their own lower, has their own spirits that they call out to help them with their various aspects of day-to-day life. But once again, in this course, we're just using a certain lower that can help us with our love magic or love spells. Now, are the lower gods? No, the lower actually serve a larger, universal, all-encompassing God. It's the universal source energy. So if you know me from my other type of work, you'll always hear me call down or call up to source energy. And source energy is universal. We all might have different names for it, but that one overriding God or universal energy is what we all call out to globally. We all have a different name for it. And it's not different when it comes to the African deity system. The difference is that in hoodoo or voodoo, people don't actually call to the universal God. You actually deal with the lower. And the lower is what's going to help us with certain aspects of our day-to-day life. We serve the lower. We believe that the lower, along with the saints and angels, are servants of this universal God. The lower are much closer to us on this earthly plane. They can hear our prayers and petitions. They can grant us health and love, but they also warn us. They can give us very strong warnings, and they say it is God's will as to what will happen. So just because you're doing a love spell and you're petitioning the lower for this spell's success, it doesn't mean that you'll be granted instant success. You've got to understand that it's a universal God's will as to the eventual success of your spell. Now, the only way for you to get to know the lower is to actually call out to them. Maybe know what they like. What sort of wine do they like? What sort of offering they like? you have to know that in order to cast a spell, you have to be able to give something over to the spiritual world. This is even in day-to-day spell casting. If I was calling out to one of the more European deity, I would understand what that deity would want. And that could be as simple as incense. Maybe it's a certain candle color. Maybe it's a dressing of an altar in a certain way. That's my own practices. There's many different type of offerings that you can give deity, and I'll give you some suggestions during this course as what I think that you could give the lower. But of course, it is up to you to build that relationship through trial and error and see what the lower wants from you.